Welcome to week 2 of me trying to code and hopefully landing a job after graduating college. For those who watched episode 1, welcome back. And for those who didn't, go back and watch episode 1 where I explain what I'm doing here, what this web series is about, and ultimately, what am I doing? Alright, now to the video. Now I ain't gonna lie to you. I pulled a little bit of oops, a bit of a oops. None of the footage recorded properly. And I mean absolutely none. Nothing got recorded. I mean, things get recorded. Again, like last time I had video of my face and me recording my reactions, but I have absolutely no footage of me actually coding. And I apologize. But at the same time, I'm a bit conflicted because one, dang, I have absolutely no actual content to kind of show y'all because it's all just a black page, literally absolutely nothing else. But on the other hand, bro, that makes editing this so much easier, less time. Like, this is actually just a blessing in disguise. I've been so busy this week, and so actually just not having to spend so much time editing, very helpful. Because last episode, I spent about like 2 days straight editing the video after making a script and recording it, and so now I have to spend less time on it. It feels great. I can go back to coding, bada bing, bada boom. You know what I'm saying? But we're here. We do have a program to show you. I have footage of programming to show you. And I don't really know. Point is this, we have footage. I'm gonna show you all what it is about. I apologize for not actually recording my stuff. We'll get figured out for next week. But anyway, for this week, I made Breakout. Yeah, I know, you're like, wait, where's the user database login system that you're literally working on and you say you're gonna learn JSON and all that? Well, you know, I considered it, and then I didn't consider it. Because I just decided that I didn't want to have to watch all those videos for this week. I honestly didn't have time to actually figure out what was going on. So instead, I decided just to make a little Breakout game. Because honestly, Breakout was by far one of the most fun, simple games that I remember playing. Because it's just simple, you know, you go whoosh whoosh, and you go whoosh, and the ball goes boing, 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 boing. So yeah, I decided to just make Breakout. And here's how it went. So because I can't show you all my incremental progress of building up this project, this is the finished product. As you can see, we have our bouncer paddle, our player bouncer. We have our ball, the bricks to break, a barrier. We also have some buttons on the side that control to restart the game, pause it, and continue it. Now, I'll be fully honest, the pause and continue buttons are just so that I had to track a lot of variables, especially the X and Y coordinates of the ball and the paddle to make sure when they were touching, you know, it bounced, which I'll explain later in the video. So while those don't really serve game functionality, they are good ways for me to kind of debug some things that were going on. And I highly recommend, while we're on the topic, using console.log. Console.log is a great way to try and figure out what's going on with variables and stuff. I had to use it for, again, trying to figure out where I wanted the ball to bounce when it was touching what. And as a programmer, you need to learn how to debug. And if you're just using web development, console.log can save your life, just saying. But on to how we got all this stuff. We start off with defining our canvas, an untouched masterpiece, ready for endless possibilities of what can be created. And then I go and butcher it with my obviously trash code. But hey, it's mine, so I can do with it what I want. Now, in order to establish our canvas page from our background, we just paint it black, keep it simple, very distinct, high contrast, chef's kiss. Next, we want to create our game elements. And the way we create them is very simple. First, you make a template, a cookie cutter template. Then, you decide how and what you're going to put in that template. Then next, we want to draw what we have made out of that template. Very simple, and this is what the code looks like. First, we make our template function. This says when we decide what we want to put into it, this is where it will be, our X and Y, how big it will be, our width and our height, and then what color, and then how we're going to draw it with our update function, which I'll explain later. So, if we go up to our game start function, we see that we have created our elements, our game wall, our player bouncer, and our main wall. And then we also have our bricks, which I will explain the bricks later on, but as a rough explanation of them, they're an array. But later I'll explain it. Now that we have created our game components, it's time to draw them onto the canvas. And the way we do that is through the canvas's rendering 2D functionality. And you can't just draw it on canvas because obviously they're going to have moving pictures. So what you have to do is constantly drawing them over and over and over, which is where our game start has our set interval to game update. And basically, this is how it works. So when we first unload the web page, we go ahead and activate our game start function. With that game start function, we create our game elements, and then we then start a interval of 20, I believe, milliseconds, which is equivalent to 50 frames per second of the game update. So then, what is our game update doing? Here is where it gets
complicated.
Our game update function does several things. One, it draws our canvas background and then draws our canvas components, aka our game elements, calling their update function that are in the templates. What the update functions are doing is utilizing canvas rendering 2D context functionality, however you want to call it, to draw our game elements based off the variables we have put it in, aka where we want it, how big we want it, and what color. And also what shape based off fill, rect, or arc. Arc being used on the ball to create a circle, and fill rect to fill a rectangle in our desired properties. It also then creates our breakable bricks for the game. Now, as much as I'd love to stand here in front of the class and give this long lecture on how it all works, because I completely understand it, I don't. And I had to use tutorials for that part. Now, originally when I made the game components and the updating of the functions, I used W3 School's Canvas game tutorial. And that taught me how to make it. Even though I didn't copy and paste code, I was able to use it as a lesson and just implement it in my own, trying to figure out, and also merge it with Chris Course's fighting game tutorial that I mainly learned from. But when I got to the breakable bricks, I am not handy mandy. I'm not Bob the Builder. All right, I'm not building a brick wall. I'm not Trump. Okay, I didn't know how to make it. I didn't know what I was doing. So I found another game tutorial. MDN, Gateway Docs, they basically did a whole thing on how to make a 2D breakout game. And for the game wall, I just decided to use them straight up because I didn't know what I was doing. And while I have a brief understanding of it, not really. So to my best abilities, I'm gonna show y'all what's going on and how it works. All right, so if we break it all down line by line, this is how it goes. First, we create our variables for the bricks. How big we want them, the spacing we want in between them, yada, 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 the bricks. We then establish what I'm guessing is our rows and columns of the bricks through an array. We let bricks of R or C is the columns, bricks of rows, the rows. We're basically creating our array for which we are then going to fill with the drawn bricks in our next level. Now with our row and column of bricks defined through an array, it is time to actually draw them. And this is where it kind of gets fuzzy because I understand for loops to a level, but this is a whole level of for loops that I'm like, eh. But basically it's going through every brick, right? And detecting whether its status is 1 or 0. If it's 1, then the brick has not been hit yet and it should be drawn. If it's 0, then the brick has been hit and it should not be drawn or registered on the game. So that's what our for loop's doing. It's constantly going through the bricks and saying if it's 1, then it is drawing them out. And then comes our collision detection, which is also registered in game update. When our bricks are hit, basically, and it determines whether bricks are hit by seeing whether our ball's position values are equivalent to the bricks position values. If it are, it then registers the bricks of a status of 0, which then tells our draw brick function to no longer draw it because it's not equivalent to 1. And bada bing bada boom, we have something to break. Now there are still a couple bugs with it. Like the ball can still kind of like phase through the bricks and stuff. So the exact dimensions of the ball and the bricks are not being properly defined. And what that most likely boils down to is me just not calculating things right. So I still have to calculate things right. But once I get that figured out, we're good as grass. That is gold. Gold grass. Yeah. Along with detecting whether or not the bricks have been hit, it also tells our ball to also go in the opposite direction, creating our bounce effect, which I will later go into detail when I'm talking about how I created the ball and also player movement and creating the detection of whether or not a ball hits the wall or hits our paddle. So again, a lot of explaining to do. Wish I could show you my step-by-step process of making it, but for right now, the explanation will have to do. Now with everything being drawn on the canvas, it's actually trying to implement where you can actually play the game. But what's the point of the game if you can't play it? So in order to do this, all we really have to do is 2 things. 1, the ball collision detection, and 2, making it work we can move our paddle. Moving the paddle was honestly the easy part because what I did, I just used the same steps I went through with my fighting game in order of creating event listeners, checking for the key press downs, whether or not it was the last key, and then whether or not if the ball, or whether or not the paddle is touching one of the sidewalls. And that would mean, it stops it from going off the game. So, real explanation. First, check to see if we press the left button. Second, we check to see if the last button pressed was the left button. 3, we check to see whether or not the ball or the paddle is about to go off the game. If it isn't, and if all those other things are true, then bam, we move the paddle left. Very simple. Again, a bunch of just switch case, event, and listener statements, very easy. Next is where we used a lot of math and utilized our console.log debugging to try and figure out where a ball and paddle was so that we can make sure that if the values are equivalent, then the ball would bounce upwards and detect collision with our paddle. Point is this: if the ball position is equal to the top of our bouncer's position, then the ball goes back up and bounces, creating a bounce. And the same thing goes for the walls. If it is equivalent to our sidewall, the positional values, it bounces again. Again, you're really just checking whether or not something equals something, and if it does, you bounce. If it doesn't, then it's not gonna bounce because it's not touching. See what I'm saying? And bada bing, bada boom, just like that, we have our breakout plum. Unpolished, of course, because I wasn't able to code that much and was still learning a lot. But next week, I plan on finishing it and hopefully polishing up to make it actually something fun to play. I'm thinking about power-ups, score, different levels. But hey, right now, we have something functional and glad something that I can at least show y'all for this week. Because this week was really busy. I honestly was debating whether or not to get a video because of me losing all this footage. But I figured, as long as I still have something to show, I have still something to make a video on. And again, for those who haven't watched the first one, go over that video, tons more content. But hopefully next week, I'll be able to show y'all a lot more of my coding and a lot more progress. But I just want to say thank y'all for watching the video. Again, I'm sorry for what happened this week. And I'm going to just try to keep getting better and better, so stick with me. Anyway, thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you next week. Peace.